Hi everyone. So in this video, looking at question 5 from assignment 2. So we're looking at 5.2. Now, before you actually watch this video, please make sure that you watch 5.1, because then I'll be referring a lot to 5.1 to actually solve 5.2. So let's start. Now here you're asked to find f of x minus g of x. So we are given f of x here as f of x is equals to square root of 3 minus x, and we're given g of x is equals to square root of x squared minus 1. So f of f minus g, they just mean that you have to find f of x minus g of x. So then this is equals to the square root of 3 minus x minus square root of x squared minus 1. Now, we are also asked to find the domain of this expression that we have found here. So how do we find the domain? So the first step will actually the first step is to find the individual domains. So let's start with the domain of f. So we know that the domain of f will be x is an element of real numbers such that everything under the square root should be greater or equals to 0. So this means that 3 minus x should be greater or equals to 0. So then this gives us that x is an element of real number such that x is less or equals to 3. So that's the domain of f. Now let's find the domain of g. So the domain of g is equals to x is an element of real number such that, so what is g? So g is the square root of x squared minus 1, meaning that everything under the square root should be greater or equals to 0 for the function of g to be defined. So therefore, x squared minus 1 should be greater or equals to 0. Now, from 5.1 in the previous video, we actually found that this is equals to x is an element of real number such that x is less or equals to -1, or x is greater or equals to 1. Okay, so now that we have found the two domains, we were not asked to find the domain of the two functions, but we are asked to find the domain of the combination of f of x minus g of x. So we're going to use these two domains to actually find the domain of the combination of f of x minus g of x. So how do we do that? So according to the theory, it says that if you have f of x minus g of x, right? If you have this part over here, this expression over here, the domain of f minus g, meaning that the domain of f of x minus g of x is actually the intersection of the two individual domains. So it means that it is the intersection of the domain of f and the domain of g. So meaning that this will be the intersection of the domain of f, and so this means the intersection. So this sign actually means the intersection and the intersection of g. So now, this is exactly what we did for 5.1. That's why I'm advising you to go back to 5.1 and see how we found the 5.1. So meaning that this is also the same as the domain of f of x plus g of x. So then this is equals to x is an element of real number such that x is less or equals to -1, or x is between 1 and -3. So x is between 1 and -3. What we have to note here is that the domain of f of x minus g of x is actually the same as the domain of f of x plus g of x, because then both are equal to the intersection of the domain of f of x and the domain of g of x. So then that's how we find that's how we solve 5.2 of assignment 2. So thank you very much, guys.